Well, it's terrific to see so many ghosts here tonight.
Thank you.
Even better that some of them have brought your people with you as well, which is really even greater. That's terrific. That's terrific. Make room. That's it. Great. Okay. Who is this strange person in front of you? I'm Lifus. I'm not going to bore you too much with my credentials. That's not why we're here. I have got one somewhere. But I'm in Essene, among other things. I have been for 27 years now. The Essenes, I mention that because the Essenes are angelologists. And angels are they are the highest manifestation of what I would call a ghost or beings of the spirit realm. So it's kind of relevant that I spent 27 years of my life doing that. Sword bearer as well, which is kind of nice, but that's just me showing off there. Yes, we work with ghosts. We don't say we work with ghosts, but we work at night, we work with angels. I can assure you what we're doing is very spirit realm, and I find it very beautiful. I tried to spend my life in magical research. I started young, fascinated by magic. Magic caused me to study religion because that's the extension of magic. That is where magic's rituals happen in churches and in temples and things like this. Religion took me on to history, took me down rabbit holes, all manner of things I found myself trying to research, and it was all getting a big mess. However, something was going on the whole time, and it had started early in my life, and that was ghost activity. And ghost activity I kind of considered as something additional in my world, anything from a red herring to an illness, but not relevant to my studies and how foolish I was. Because I've literally in the last couple of years only had this major epiphany about the inner ghost. And this is what I'm beginning to try and hope to share with people, because it strikes me that for all our wonderful new age researches, sciences, new techniques, new ologies, where's the ghost research? Where is it? What's it called? What are they doing about it? There's a dirty, great dearth hole where it should be. And yet, do you know what is the one thing you can't live without? And you will never get away from it. It is the one piece of magic that plays out on a daily basis that nobody's even considering magic. It is the actual essence of what happens when we request something through prayer or ritual, and it comes back at you. Well, how do you think it came back at you? Well, it comes back via the spirit world. And it comes back to you, not personally, but it is personal, but it comes to your ghost. Your ghost is the being that matters. You are a very beautiful, slightly misinformed temporary host of your own ghost. And your ghost, let us be clear, again a point not dwelt on nearly enough. Ghosts to some people is something that only comes into existing after somebody died badly. And suddenly this ghost thing is born. It couldn't be more upside down if it tried. A ghost can only be left as a record of you if it already existed when you died. It is certainly not born at the moment of your death. I can assure you of that. But before I get too far down my own rabbit hole, I'd better stick to my notes, or none of this will make any sense. So bear with me while I have a quick read. Gnosis and work at night. Yes, I did found my own school of research into this, a school I called Rosa Mystica, August the 17th in 1982. It's had various wonderful acolytes over the years. Some people have gone on to do great things. They come and go. We always work. We work with the pink ray, with the rose energy. It's a beautiful thing. It's love. It's another thing. Personal to ghosts, again, that's at the end of the talk, but I'll throw it in at the beginning. Your ghost doesn't live on beef or soya or beer or chocolate or any of those things. But you know, it gets nourishment from love, and that's the only essence in the universe that can nourish a ghost. And love is a force that, again, I could spend a lifetime explaining love. Another non-investigated force. The whole world's politics rolls on it, but it's not considered as the protagonist or the catalyst of events, and yet it often is. Your ghost is about love. Any love event that you do, any love event that you put out, is in the interest of your ghost path, its agenda, its growth, its well-being. Anything you do out of love, you harm your ghost. You harm it. You cause a distraction, you cause a movement off the path. But anyway, again, I get too excited and I end up at the end before the beginning. So I'll reel myself back in. Bear with me. The old Mage, I better not tell you about him. Or why not? Yes, I will. 12 years ago, I was offered an incredible opportunity to walk with an extra ghost. I was offered it, it was my decision, and this decision was not easily taken. The ghost I was offered calls himself the old Mage, the old wizard. And for this ghost to be with me took 7 years for him to latch on and be fully there. This was 12 years ago, so he's been walking with me for 5 years, helping me with my thoughts, with my deeds, with my direction. And sometimes he butts in and people notice changes in me, sometimes, and that's kind of cool. I wish I could just call him and know he's going to be there, but he is his own being. I don't claim him, he walks with me when it suits him. I think he's always there, but he's not always interested. Anyway, that's the old Mage, and he's part of my makeup. Every one of us is more than ourselves. This is another thing. You have a ghost that is your life essence. Call it the spark of life. We're also, somebody asked me today, rang up and said, by ghost, do you mean higher self? Yes. Higher self, soul, spirit, ghost. To me, these are all reaching out ways of trying to explain that intangible spark that's in you, of that super being that knows more than you, etc., etc., etc. Right. I'm moving quickly because I've got so much data and I would like to try and get it all in without waffling too much. So, where are we? Wendy Devine helped me with that. That was 7 years ago. Study of magic, religion, and that. Okay. This will be relevant later. One last thing about myself. When I was 21, I went to see a very famous clairvoyant, no longer with us, called Madame Tamar. Maybe you've heard of her, maybe not. She was in Weston-super-Mare, a wonderful person, very real. And she proceeded to tell me about one of my earliest hauntings in my life when I was about 12 years old in Liverpool, where this a bedroom wrecking ghost was having goes at our house, and it got so ridiculous we had to get the police in and have the house staked out. So we thought we were being broken into every day. And the chief of police of Liverpool actually said to my dad at the end of it, "We're going now, nobody came, place is wrecked, by the way, you got poltergeist." Wow, that's from the police, you know. Anyway, 21, I reached 21, I see this clairvoyant. She tells me the same story in complete detail, I'm amazed. And then she said, "You know that poltergeist?" And I said, "Yeah." She said, "It was you. Ghost of the living." And at puberty, when your ghost most tries to get your attention, your most powerful time of your life, ironically, is in puberty while you are in ignorance and just fumbling around having fun with your mates. You are at your most super powerful, but you don't know it. And your ghost is on one, trying to get through. And this is what the case was here. The poltergeist wrecking the house was me trying to get my own attention. But I was 21 before I realised it. Anyway, I was told that by Madame Tamar, and it made a lot of sense to me. And it was one of my first seedings of the whole idea of ghosts of the living. And this was to come back later. Anyway, I'll move on from here. Again, I'm keeping these all fleeting. Each is a story, but we just haven't got that many hours. So I begin the talk proper. Ghosts of the living. Now, in order for that to make some sense, we need to first reference a little bit about ghosts generally. So, first of all, I'll put it to you, not only do you have a ghost, but your ghost has got more superpowers than you can possibly dream or would credit it with. There's a little something in us all that loves the idea of superheroes, especially lately. They're all animated in various programs on the telly. This one can fly, this one can wield ice, this one can do... your ghost can do all of that. This is where this whole superhuman concept comes from, is that actually everybody here is a Superman and a Superwoman, trapped inside a host body with limited education and a very poor communication to your own inner core. A poor communication because we're not encouraged to even have one. And yet there have been times when your own ghost may have saved your life, or lives of a friend, things like that. I can see some faces, I know it's ringing bells. I'll come back to that. Many times. Oh yes, by the way, if anybody burns to need to speak or ask a question, I trust that spirit really making moves, and so I welcome it, okay? As long as it doesn't take up the whole lecture, that's no problem, all right? So, anyway, so your ghost is the most powerful being on earth. What do you mean by that, Lifus? What powers has it got? Ghost types and qualities. Right, well, let's start basically. Most basic form of a ghost is what I call an event loop ghost. And these are the most common recorded ghosts, but only because they're the most reported. And by event loop ghosts, I mean somebody walking down the road, legs missing, taking no notice of anybody at all, and then just disappearing. An event loop ghost. Some people think of that as like a replay, and that it's not actually happening. Trouble with a replay is a rebuilt or captured movement of light. It has no soul, it has no intention, it has no thought, it has no sensation. A replay isn't real. When these event ghosts do their walk, to them the time is now. It's not a replay, it's happening. So they're not a replay, it's an event loop. It's an anomaly of time. Something ghosts are far more used to than we are. That time can be anything other than linear is hard for a human. It's automatic to a ghost. It's not a problem. But these things, even in their most basic, the walk through the wall ghost is actually sensing at that point, is sensing, is thinking, is experiencing, and is living that moment as if it was brand new. So don't think they're just a replay and it doesn't matter, because they're not. To them, something else is going on we can't begin to understand, but love them for it. Now that's the most basic.
So why do they keep repeating the same performance time after time?
Yeah, they go round loops many times.
Out of my jurisdiction to even begin to answer that question. I trust in that which I don't know is magnificent, and there's a reason behind it. Why some things have to go through that over and over is a process I dearly would like to understand, but I don't, and I wouldn't pretend to. But I am aware that they are sensual beings, not just a replay.
No, I understand that.
Okay, it is sensual, they are there. So, okay, that's the basic. Walkers and hikers. This is a slightly level up. When you have people have, in the night, picked up a hitchhiker, and then 5 minutes later down the road, they're not in the bloody car anymore. And they've actually flagged you down, maybe even said a word or so to you, got in your car, travelled with you, and then disappeared. Some people have just had people suddenly appear in their car, travel with them for a while, maybe speak, and then disappear. These are a level up from an event loop ghost, because they're aware that you're there. They're even borrowing your vehicle, getting in it, saying, down the road, please, mate, you know. They've talked to you, they've included you in their real time, they've included you in their event, and they've formed something with you for a period of time, something very deep, something that should speak to your inner ghost. There's an example of this locally. He's called the Godney farmer. And he's the least weird ghost I can tell you about in this area, because the ones around here, my goodness, they've got some weird ghosts here. But the Godney farmer is probably the easiest. And I met him. I'm coming back from Godney one night. It's a very long, straight, thin road with a reen on either side, so there's no escape. It's just the one road, reen either side, bit of a fog, wonderful, perfect, horror story stuff. Walking down the road, and to my relief, I could see a very good distance ahead, maybe 150, 200 yards, somebody else is coming the other way. This calmed me down. Me, who lives the world of ghosts, can still get scared. Don't think I can't. I get creepy too. And I was real pleased to see this guy coming. So that chilled me out. We're walking towards each other, and he's coming closer and closer, and now I can see him in detail, and he's got an old greasy cap with a pinch point in the middle where he's pinched it 10,000 times in his life. He's got a mac on with no buttons, and it's done up with a piece of rope. He's got old corduroy jeans on that are too big and wellies, and he's sort of bopping down the road. He's just coming down the road, and he comes right alongside me, and as he comes alongside me, and I mean that close, it kind of half stops in his step. He looks me straight in the eye, and he touches that little shiny peak on his hat, and he acknowledges me. He's looking bang in the eye, puts his hand down like that, steps past me. I ran freezing cold. I turn around, he ain't there, is he? He's not there. Oh my God, he was comforting me, and he turned out to be the very ghost I was needing comfort from. But anyway, what was interesting about that was the way he looked in my eye. That eye was as wet and living and all-seeing. He was so there, it's just not real. And the way he stopped, that's personal. His event included me. Loads of people have seen him. Friendly old guy, check him out, you might get lucky. Often does the walk. I understand he was a bit tipsy one night and went in the rain, and that was the end of him. Which is why he still walks. But he's the least of the things going on around here. You can trust me on that one. Right, we're all the Ghost 6 Highs passengers, lone wanderer, Godney farmer. Now then, they get more advanced. Personal interaction can get ridiculously real. When I was 17, forgive me talking about myself, my experiences are better if they're my own rather than something I read in a book. To me, they got more credibility. So forgive me if the story includes me a bit, but it does. I was in hospital, I had an operation for a hernia. It went badly wrong. I wasn't very well at all. I nearly died. However, straight after the operation, I'm in my hospital bed. Door opens, in steps this wonderful goddess-shaped woman. Lovely big lovely lady, really big lady. And she had this dark blue nurse's outfit, huge great bib, and the biggest damn hat I ever seen. It was huge, and it seemed to be made of cardboard, a little bit grubby. And she came across to me, she's looking down on me like that, and I can see that on her bib, this red cross is painted with red paint, and I can see the brush strokes. And it's fading, and it's old, and I can see the brush strokes on it. There's a painted red cross on her chest, and I'm thinking, I don't remember them still doing that. I'm pretty dizzy, just had an operation. I don't feel wonderful, I'm not exactly analysing the situation. And she looks down at me. Now, I didn't know I was dying, bear in mind, I thought I was only having a hernia operation. And she says to me, it's never too late to turn to God. As God is my witness, they were her words. And I wear a cross, and when I went in for my operation, I refused to take it off, so they taped it to my hand. And when she said, it's never too late to turn to God, I just said, it's okay. And I went like that. She smiled. She pulled me forward, she adjusted my pillows, laid me back down again, then she pulled my bed covers up and she tucked me in all nice and tight. She's over me, I can smell her, I can feel her. her hand, she's lifting me up, she's doing my pillows, she's doing everything. And she just quietly leaves the ward. I go back to sleep. Next time I wake up, there's some orderly coming in. Do you want to buy some pencils, or a magazine, Who was that wonderful lady? Described her, he said, hang on a minute, mate, let me get somebody. Comes back with a couple of nurses and a doctor. Tell me again. Told the story. Oh, thank you. We thought we'd lost her forever. She's a Crimean nurse that's been haunting the hospital ever since it was built. But she goes back to Crimean times and she was in Crimean clothes. Because they more or less made their own then. Nursing was being invented at this point. It was rich ladies who went out and did it with their spare time, wonderful people. And she was a Crimean-style nurse from that era. And apparently, and this is what they told me, she only appears to the dying and she offers them redemption. And it's only people who cheated death that had come back and told about her. And since nobody had cheated it for a very long time, they thought they lost her. And they were so thrilled to know that she was back. And I was thinking, hey, I'm not thrilled. You're just telling me I just nearly died. I came here for a hernia operation. So how solid can that? She tucked me in. She talked to me. But what blew my mind, and this is why God and everything is so real to me. On my deathbed, this ghost was offering me redemption. Do you realise how important that is? That was genuinely offered at that point. Hugely important. Hugely important. I call her the night nurse, and she's my favourite ghost I ever met. She's great. The night nurse. Anyway, we're still dwelling on ghosts of the dead, so let me try and move along a little bit. Am I going too quick? No? No? Good. Oh, night nurse, offered redemption. Never too late to say anything. I never forget those words. I never forget those words. Only twice have ghosts ever talked to me, and only once have they allowed me to remember. And that was, it's never too late to turn to God. Those words just haunt me to this day. Because I wasn't particularly religious at that point in time, so that was a real revelation. Anyway, okay, we'll move on. Some ghosts project objects, cause disarray. We often call them poltergeist. One form is a poltergeist, but that's generally a ghost of the living, where we're about to get to. But there are other ghosts that will simply use this process for attention, or to stop something happening, or to drive somebody away from somewhere. Because what's odd about ghosts, and people don't, again, consider this. I could say to you, you scared of ghosts? And you say, yeah, or you say no, or I don't believe in them. What do you think a ghost would say if you asked them the same question? Not do you believe in ghosts, but are you scared of ghosts? What do you think they'd say? They'd say, you're damn right I am, because I know what they are, and I know what I've got to deal with, and I know their power, and I know their limitations. Am I scared of ghosts? You're thinking, right, I'm scared of ghosts. Don't take me in that building there. There's a nasty one in there. And they can say this to you in the strangest way. You will go in somewhere because somebody said do it. It's a nice place to go. It's interesting. And you'll suddenly think, oh no, this doesn't feel right. I feel ill. I feel creepy. I feel weird. Something's telling me go. What's telling you to go? Your inner ghost. Because your inner ghost don't want to go in there. Your inner ghost knows that something in there is detrimental to it. And never mind what you're going to experience, your ghost has its own agenda and its own life to consider. I know it's a strange thing to say, it's life, but it is. And there are some places your ghost doesn't want to go. There are some ghosts your ghost doesn't want to go near. And that's an odd concept. That your ghost can be more scared of ghosts than you are. And it actually keeps you scared of ghosts as part of its own protection. It'll creep you out and stop you going to the place it doesn't want to go. It's that internal. It's that rotary. It's an odd thing. And again, moving objects, these are to do with the powers of your ghost. Bear in mind, every power I reveal that a ghost has, you also have yourself. Once you begin to access your inner ghosts, moving objects, you should be able to do that yourself. Clairvoyance, healing, other things I'll bring up. Anything they can do, actually, so can you if you get in the right space. So can you. And this can get so extreme. Have I got any fire brothers and sisters here tonight? Has anyone ever done a fire walk? Fantastic, fantastic. How do you think you managed it? Do you think that you really made your body immortal at that point for 10 seconds while you walked through the fire? But I tell you what, your ghost made your body immortal for 5 seconds while you walked through that fire. Your ghost can. It puts a shield around you, or around the bit that matters, because it can. And by dint of an arrangement in the spirit world, and in trust in that arrangement, you walk the fire, which you could not walk through without that spiritual involvement. Now, great adepts can raise themselves to do that after many years of depth and research and trust the process. But when I firewalk, probably like these people here, I just managed to meet somebody who does it. I had to have faith that my Lord would look after me and that my guardian angels would look after me, and trust that without the donkey's years of practice, I could still throw my feet in that fire and get away with it. Now, this takes a lot of trust, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Doesn't it? This takes a lot of trust, a lot of faith. And they tell you, call on whatever guardian you think you need, whether you're mentioning a name of God or a special archangel or some relative, but you call that and you chant it and you keep saying it, you keep thinking it, and this is how you get through the fire. Thank you, Michael, get me through the fire. I called the Archangel Michael personally, that's what I called. And you walk through this fire. Now, this fire that I walked through is the Cherokee fire walk. It's illegal because it's so dangerous. The Sufi fire walk is coke. As you know, a few orange cokes under a few others like that, carefully tread through, you're at the other side. The Cherokee fire walk is wood. And they burn the wood until it becomes glowing embers in a pit. And those glowing embers in the pit, they glow from this corner, this corner, this corner, this corner, without a gap. Brilliant orange. And when the wind blows, yellow-white. And when that wind blows, it is 1200 degrees Fahrenheit in that fire, hot enough to melt a car to a puddle in the road. And you step in that barefoot. You sink to your ankles and are wrapped in yellow-white glowing embers, 1200 degrees. Come out the other side, even the fine hairs on your feet are still intact, not even singed. And do you know what was wonderful? I saw this myself. One of the ladies I firewalked with had painted toenails, and that wasn't necessary. So when she came out, she still had the fine hair on her feet, but all of her nail varnish had turned to dust on every single toe. That wasn't needed, that was melted off. Feet were fine. Your ghost did that. Your ghost can take you through fire, 1200 degrees of fire. Now, this is super physics, this is ghost physics. I came up with a word for it, I've forgotten it again. I made up my own word for ghost physics. But ghost physics is remarkable. Like I say, they can immortalize a piece of your body, they can do all sorts of things. And this power, as the fire-walking brothers and sisters will know, you summoned while you were still alive. And it joined in and it let you do it. And a part of you knew you could. And that's the part that's beginning to trust the inner-outer process and access your superhuman. Because whatever your dream, actually you have the power to do it. My dream's always been to fly. How many times have I done it in my dreams? How many times have I done it in real life? I ought to say no to keep myself credible, didn't I? 1.5 times just. Tremendous amount went into it, and it wasn't for very long. But enough to prove to me it can be done. It can be done. It's amazing what superhumans can do. People have a crash in the car, wife's trapped in the car, it's beginning to burn, husband wants to get her out, door's completely caved in and mangled, there's no way you can open it. loses his temper in rage. I am not watching my wife go up in flames. Grab the door, rip it clean off the car and pull her out. Many, many cases of that. How did that arm have the power to rip a door clean out of the steel? Well, it didn't. Your ghost can do it. Your ghost can do it. And it stepped in and it did it. And these are many cases of this. Many cases. Your ghost is limitless. These are only the beginnings of what you could be up to. Now, I've really lost myself on the notes, so you're going to have to bear with me. I've gone off on one there. Oh, dear. Ghosts not in the body. Let's shine back down a little. Oh, no, we've done all that. Some ghosts don't have to appear as human at all, obviously. That goes without saying. And sometimes people just see, like, twinkling lights or strange things, like in my mother's pub in Kilmersdon, a red glowing net would appear in the room. What on earth is that? There's the question.
What about orbs? Are they tied in with ghosts?
Yes, I do believe they are. I do believe they are. This is exactly what I mean about disassociated lights, that you know is a life form. It's like Spock. It's life, Captain, but not as we know it. We know it's a form of ghost. It's just not taken on a body for whatever reason, or has left it behind for whatever reason, or it might be out on probe, just sending a few of its essences out.
Or it's an optical side effect, or whatever its consciousness is doing.
This is possible also, the eyes of the individual
what is
can perceive
light?
things differently.
What is light? It hardly has any mass. It's hardly anything at all.
I'd like to go there, but I haven't quite got enough time on the what is light. That's another topic, I think. We'll do that
Ask
one day.
a ghost.
Ask a ghost, yeah, it's a good idea.
Well,
Ask a
my
ghost for a light, see what you get. I like that. Let's dive back at it. Ghosts. Age of ghosts. I don't know if you considered it, but ghost stories, as the like of which we know and hear, aren't very old. And some of the earliest ghost stories that we will be familiar with won't be much more than 500, maybe 600 years ago, or more recent. And there are no ancient ghosts out there that you can run into. And that is odd. What is going on there? What is this suggesting? And as I say, I've looked into this quite considerably about how old and how long they hang around. And it does seem to be about a 500 or 600 year period. Bernie, yeah.
Does that mean if you go to somewhere like Egypt and you're able to detect ghosts, you won't be able to?
Well, thank you. Actually, no. Your question is totally irrelevant, because what I was about to say is there are extreme examples of exactly the opposite.
Yeah.
When a being's destiny is so mighty and the ghost's agenda is so important that this 500 to 600 year attention span that it can go above, it becomes irrelevant. Yeah. I myself have, over the years, tried to get a communication going with ghosts older than that, and I had one success. mightily had one success. I wasn't going to admit it, but I'm going to tell you who I was trying to call up. I was trying to call up Joseph of Arimathea, and I got more than I bargained for. And that is a 2,000-year-old ghost. And boy, did it come through. I'd love to share that with you, but I don't want to lose all my credibility in one night, because it's actually too hard a story to believe. It happened to me, I'm left living with it. I will never forget doing it. But that was a 2,000-year-old spirit that was of such importance that it was as potent now as it was 2,000 years ago, maybe even more so. Maybe even more than when it was alive.
What
in fact, I'm sure
people
more
that
than
claim to sing Sarson and all the rest of the Egyptian bands?
Well, because they were so mighty, I don't see why they wouldn't still be accessible. We're talking a pharaoh. Pharaohs go through incredible rituals to raise their ghost in their lifetime.
Superhuman.
I don't know if you, yes you do, and I know a few other people know that pyramids are used for the raising of a pharaoh until, when the new pharaoh is due to take his office, he enters the pyramid as a king. When he leaves, he will be a pharaoh, but he enters as a king. And in the king's chamber, whatever, in the grand sarcophagus, they undergo a ceremony which involves ritually killing the king. I say ritually, it is symbolic. And in the spirit world, almost 90% real. He almost does die in the spirit world. And whilst in a trance state of more dead than alive, a spirit is raised, which there is, in the case of Egypt, the spirit of Horus. And the spirit of Horus is then superimposed upon the spirit of the king. And once he has Horus superimposed upon his own ghost, he goes from being king to pharaoh. Now this is a mighty raising. So he's now even more than an earth king. It's like almost an angel on earth. That's as high a status as it is. And so would the pharaohs outlive time, unlike other ghosts? Yes, because of the mighty processes they went through while they were alive that involved their ghost being raised. And, each of them still wears Horus. Maybe not personally, but as a leftover influence. And I think these leftover influences never fully deactivate. So they're partly yours or accessible to you. To what level? I don't know. I've really lost my place on these notes now. So I hope this is going to not fall to pieces on me. Okay, good question then. No ancient ghosts. So, is it a case perhaps of series? I've put here that they could come in series. You have like a 500-year series, and a select set of ghosts come about and are entering people over a sort of half-millennium period. And then like some half-epoch change happens, and an actual fresh set of ghosts come into play, and those ghosts that were there move on to their next whatever they're going to be. So you get a fresh set. Now this is one possibility. If it's not fresh sets of ghosts, then I'm sure ghosts didn't first start happening 500 years ago, and there's nothing before that, because that's poo, that's rubbish. That really is rubbish. So, what we could have is virtually almost eternal ghosts that have their own sequence agendas. And after, say, a 500-year period, they may come across totally differently with the next phase of what they've got to do, a little bit like Christ coming and giving you the latest ministry for the next period of time and changing the way we did things. And so they may come, create a change, leave, reappear, appearing to be someone else, but actually themselves in the next manifestation. That's another possibility. So either way, there could be other possibilities I can't even imagine also. But one thing does seem clear is that your ghost is incredibly ancient. Everybody's ghost is incredibly ancient. They may predate us as an animal race. May have just needed us to exist in order to come out into a host in order to do things. They may have been instrumental in creating us the way we are, which is why we're so very different to other animals. All this von Daniken and alien intervention. Well, maybe it was ghostly. Maybe it's always been ghostly. These are the giant questions that nobody's looking at. This is the missing science that I'm talking about. Is that where did they come from? What is their lives about? Where are they going? Why are we involved? How much are we involved? How much free will do we have at all in this? I'll ask myself a question. Do ghosts have an agenda? My goodness me. Do ghosts have an agenda? You think you know what an agenda is? You want to ask a ghost. Because they live agenda. They are an agenda. And so much so, every single person has such a unique destiny that they'll have a unique agenda to do with that destiny, which may appear to be only their own. But it's that ghost's job, and that ghost's job is that, and that ghost's job is that, and that ghost's job is that. They have their sets of agendas.
Maybe we're the pets of ghosts.
Interesting idea. Pets of ghosts. Yeah.
We dance to their tune.
Yeah, I'm kind of seeing where you're coming from. I have an animal, and it does me good to have it, but it's such a mischief and a nuisance. It can be a bigger red herring and a pest than it is a growth. And yet you love it and you make it your life. And I think, yeah, your body is a bit like that to a ghost. It is an ignorant, fumbling nuisance that thinks it knows everything and walks all over the ghost's agenda trying to do something stupid. And your ghost tries to steer you the right way. Because to me, ambition, drive, dreams, all these things that you think are unique to you, that's actually the ghost's agenda lumped on your lap, and it's saying, this is what I want you to do. You may think it's your agenda, it's your ghost's agenda. And if it's not your ghost's agenda, then you're a big red herring, and you may start to actually cross swords with your own ghost. And when people do cross swords with their own ghost, and it may not be for obvious mental reasons, there can be other factors, you start ending up with, I would call it emotionally ill people, taking into account things like schizophrenia, bipolar disorders, depressive disorders. These things are your ghost and you not being one. They are a little mini war in yourself. And it's not always your fault. It's not always your fault at all. Because I must point out that not all ghosts are as obviously light-workingly perfect as others. Some can be really unfortunate in their effects, in their wills, in their own agendas, and it may not be their fault, it may be their agenda to be the spoke in the works. You know, I don't know the grand plan, that everything has its place, even those things that are annoying. And people who suffer from these I'm two people disorders are actually probably very powerful people, very psychic people with very deep agendas that are not in touch with their agenda, so they're actually getting ill, crossing it, falling out with it, tripping over it, causing it red herrings, hearing it, not reacting to it, doing your own thing, causing it harm. And you end up in a circle of harm that the doctors can't quite work out, and psychiatrists will give you all this Freud rubbish about. But what it really is it's kind of communication breakdown with your own ghost. And I could have think of no greater thing to say to somebody who's got any kind of bipolar thing other than the greatest wisdom of all time. Know thyself. Look in, look in. The trouble started there, it can be sorted out there. Never mind the tablets, never mind the quacks, never mind the perverts like Freud. Oh dear, don't get me going. But yes, it's all inside. It's within. Okay, Age of Ghosts, no ancient ghost, possible series. Semi-endless eternal ghost, purpose of your body. Purpose of your body, to provide and sustain a semi-utopian environment for your ghost, spirit, soul to live in. Yes, it pretty well is what your body is, but the trouble is because you think it's so entirely yours, and that you like getting drunk or this or that or whatever, and we are not showing proper respect to our own bodies because of a lack of realization of damage that can be done. We don't treat ourselves as enough of a temple. We don't see ourselves as important enough or as special enough. And we're certainly not looking to raise the superhuman. Most of the time we're too busy causing it a problem. But that needn't to be the case. These spirits have an agenda. We've been there. Lucky I've done that bit. Yes, they do. Dreams, I've done that bit. Now it gets interesting. Now, I have a drink. Because this is very important. I don't know if this lady is still alive. I hope she is. She was about 60 when I incurred her, which was about 30 years ago, so she could be alive. This is a very wonderful being called Her Holiness Mataji Sri Namala Devi. And she was I don't know what the correct word is, the chief guru of an order of, I think they were Hindu yogists, but they specialize in a special form of yoga called Sahaj. Anybody heard the word Sahaj yoga? Sahaj yoga deals with a being they call the Kundalini. Now, I'm sure a lot of you have heard the word Kundalini. And say, thanks to people like Freud, immediately most people assume you're talking sexual energy. Please. That's not even go there. Freud, put him in with Darwin and shove him in another room somewhere. Those guys are real red herrings. They've really held up science. Anyway, I digress. Sahaj Yoga insists that you have a ghost. They call it the Kundalini, and they know a lot about it, and they know where it lives. And it lives in a piece of your body called the trapezium, which is a triangular bone at the bottom of your coccyx. They also call it the sacrum. And within this triangular bone, they image a coiled serpent. And this coiled serpent is called your Kundalini. And it is the Sahaj way of describing your ghost in an other than legs and arms state, but in a more compact dwelling state in your body as a miniature serpent. And the Sahaj yogists know how beneficial it is for you to awaken your ghost in your life rather than wait till your death, which is a bit late. And so they have this incredible yoga that they do. I went through it twice, thank you, it was wonderful. Quite an incredible process. A shaman is behind you with a conch shell and lemongrass or white sage smudging. And there's a great deal of animalistic grunting going on. Grunt, 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 all these funny noises, lots of heat going through you. And you start to feel a stirring in your lower back. And you start to feel a tickly irritation going through your spinal cord. You can feel it. There's no argument about it. It's quite intriguing, and it goes in jumps, and it's there, and it's there. And it carries on going. If you're lucky, there's somebody behind you doing all this, it reaches your pineal gland, and there it is blocked. And it is blocked by something called the fontanella hole. Every baby born is born with a hole in the top of their skull called the fontanella hole, and it very quickly heals. That is your portal. That is where the ghost goes in and out. Straight through a hole in the top of your head, the fontanella hole. Interesting, incredibly interesting, is the fact that it's still open when a baby is born. That intrigues me beyond I can tell you. I'd love to know why it's still open, or even more interesting, why it then closes. But anyway, it does. Now, with Sahaj Yogi, bless them, they're incredibly good at this. They get your Kundalini, your ghost, up to your pineal gland. You then feel an extension to your pineal gland. You start feeling a little bit all-knowing and a little bit wide-headed and a little bit of pressure trying to get out. This very quickly turns to an incredibly unpleasant sensation, which thankfully doesn't last too long, of somebody inside your head with a large safety pin, punching at your fontanella hole. And it's, and it's bursting, and then suddenly, boom, and it comes through. And your ghost, your Kundalini, your higher self, rushes out the top of your head and goes, whoosh, and it's here. and they paint it in their pictures and on their silks and in their meditation mandalas. They paint a being with a giant bouquet of flowers coming out of their head, or like an exotic bird of paradise's bib, whatever it is. And not only is it like a beautiful bouquet of flowers, but it has eyes. And this is the strangest thing, is that once your ghost punches through, instead of observing the world from your eye height, which in my case is about 5'10", something like that, instead you start watching the world from here. And you actually are watching the world from, your eyes are still here, but your brain's seeing images that are coming from up here, from maybe 9 inches, 10 inches higher than your eyes are. And you're looking down on absolutely everything. And it's a wonderful sensation. But it's a little bit hard to walk at first. You're not used to being that tall. You think you're going to fall over and you're going to bump into things. And you duck going under doors because you know your head's a bit bigger now. And it's a very strange sensation. And I've gone through this process twice. And I've raised it again myself at home with the process they taught me a couple more times. But then I lost the ability. You do have to keep it up. If you try to bring your ghost out in its lifetime, you have to keep up the process if you want it to remain very awake and very with you and to be being fed by it. It lives on all sorts of strange things. The food she promoted for this superhuman is one food and one food only: raw cane sugar. I know, isn't it odd? And she has, what do they call them, hospices in India for the dying, who she looks after, and they're fed only raw cane sugar and water. That's it. And apparently, when they first come in and go on to, they thrive, and they last for ages in these hospices, and they're only fed raw cane sugar. And it's not only nourishment for the body, but it seems to nourish the ghost too. There's something incredible in raw cane sugar. It's a superfood. Odd that, but there you are. I just don't go off on one, but make sure I'm there. But see, the Sahaj Yogi, this was my first realization that your ghost can break through in a communication way with you while you are alive. And the benefits that can come from doing that. But there is a negative to it. And I must point this out because it's extremely real. Because your ghost is so superhuman, it is supersensory. It perceives much more than you can with your senses. It's got more senses. So when you've got your new state with your new eyes up here and your scanners on full as you're walking along, you get to a pub and you almost collapse at the knees. Your kidneys start to go, your liver starts to go, your heart might palpitate, blood temperature go up, everything starts going wrong. Because you actually, in a scanner way, perceive the damage done to the ghosts inside by the behaviour they're indulging in. And it's so damaging that as you go by, you're literally rocked by it and brought to your knees. Or if you find yourself in the company of somebody who's very ill, you can end up feeling more ill than them because your senses are on super full. And it's a little more information than you're used to. And it can actually harm you if you keep it up. However, why would they want to do that when it's so apparently harmful to them? Well, I'll tell you why, because they're giving. Because once they feel your problem, they will stop, take time out and help you heal that problem with the same ghost that perceived it. So they use that way, they use the living ghost as a diagnostic tool to see where help is needed, and then they stop and they give it. They give succor to the sick ghost. And you can. And this is exactly what healers do. They lay their hands on you when they do this. It is a ghostly interaction. It is one ghost balancing out another ghost, or aiding it, or succouring it, or giving it what it needs, or patching up its wounds, because it's in the same realm. And almost all sickness is within your ghost. It's nearly all based on stress. It's amazing how if we can de-stress, how well we would all be. Stress causes almost every illness out there. They are the manifestation, but they're not the beginning. The beginning is distressed ghosts. Okay? So, it's a little bit deep, but I do believe it's real. I think it's very real. Okay. I see I've silenced everybody completely. Are you going to hang me at the end or go, wow, that was weird? So here we go. Rataji, God bless you, just spoken about it. Oh yes, incidental. That's a weird case. What happens with twins? What indeed happens with twins? Something odd going on there too. Especially with identical twins. Have you got identical ghosts going with those identical twins? Have they got, even more weirdly, a shared ghost?
No.
Or is it that even though the bodies look identical, their two ghosts couldn't be more different if you tried?
Yeah.
All three.
Yes.
Or all of the above, or none of the above? But something odd is going on, and with triplets then it gets even more so. But there's a thing that twins do that is interesting, which is why it makes me wonder about how ghost works with twins. And that is that when you have twins, especially when they're young, strange things happen. In particular, the formulation, very quickly, of a language that only they understand. And twins, when they're very young, will gibber away to each other in what seems to be complete gibberish to us, and they're completely coherent with each other and understand exactly what each other said to each other. Did they make that language up? They're too young. It's too intricate. And how on earth did they learn so many but they already know it, and they talk in it. They grow out of it. It's extremely common, it's ever so well recorded. And to me, I put it to you that I think they're talking in tongues. They're talking in ghost talk. And that is a wonderful gift that twins have, that would be lovely if we all had. They actually begin with a knowledge of ghost talk. I think they lose it very quickly because they're not encouraged to keep it up. They're not encouraged to remember it. In fact, they're scolded for it. Stop it, talk English. Oh dear, what a terrible thing to stifle such a wonderful gift. Ghosts of the living. Why won't they let them live? Anyway, I'm off for one go. I do that a lot. Twins. Ghosts give to you, they lend you the healing powers. Powers like chi and prana, I believe they are not a piece of your ghost, but an expression of your ghost's ability to lend power, or give power, or be power. And a ghost can let a little bit of its own life energy go towards healing another ghost. And the laying on of hands or the sending of the things with prana and chi, the whole sense of summoning it before it is done. It smacks to me of your ghost is the healer, your hand is the tool. And that, in an interesting way, in the same way that when we make a prayer, not every prayer is answered. Not every wish to automatically heal is instantly heeded. Your ghost has will. It has to decide to join in, and it can decide not to. And so sometimes healers fail on the person they most wanted to heal. Ghosts have agendas. What can I say? Ghost knew why it wasn't to heal you that day. It's deep. It's very deep. So prana and chi, definitely. Ghosts, removal of pain, exactly the same thing, all the same thing. Gets more interesting. Telepathy. We know our human limitations, we know science, we know physics enough to know that that's a load of hooey. And yet we also know it happens. And we know that it happens for real. How many tests, how many different ways have they tried it? It happens. What's happening? How is it happening? Well, I put it to you that, if I want to talk to him, I'll send my ghost. And it goes into his head or wherever his ghost is currently hanging out at that point and gives him the information. But it gives him it as a complete unit, as a complete vision, a complete explanation, a complete why, wherefore, and what I want you to do. And it does so in interesting ways. For a start, there is no time lapse. When a ghost travels, it has two speeds. The human speed of the event loop, when it's living a present it can't get out of. And then it has its other speed, ghost speed. I call it the speed of intention. Where if it wants my friend in Gloucester to be aware of something I'm going through right this moment, it can make him simultaneously have part of that experience at the same time moment, in a completely different space in time, and yet it's the same incident. So they can time travel. Flipping heck. They move at the speed of intention. Their communication skills are so total that we don't argue with the communication. Highest level of this example, I wouldn't be alive if this wasn't true. Tiny story, very important. In the back of a car, 2 other friends, 2 in the front, 5 of us in total, going down the road, up to no good, kids never are, just going down the road, everybody making loads of noise. Suddenly in my head, even though I can't see it, but ahead of us there's a wood and a steep hill, and I see in my head a lorry twist sideways, jackknife, come down suddenly into our vision, blocking both sides of the road, coming straight at the car and killing all of us. And I saw this in a second, even though the incident probably would have taken 4 or 5 seconds. In 1 second, I've seen it, the whole thing played. I not only know it's real, I've completely got it, I completely trust it, I know it's going to happen. I now have to communicate to everybody in the car in a way that they're going to believe fast enough to save us all. So I've got to trust the process, and I screamed out, "Get off the road, get off the road!" Driver was so spooked at my determination and loudness and freak that without hesitation spun off the road onto the grass verge. No sooner did we get on the verge, the lorry emerged that nobody had heard or seen, emerged exactly as I saw it, jackknifed across the road, blocked the entire road, came swimming past us, missed us by inches, and we were in the verge. Had I not reacted to the telepathic communication given me by my own ghost, all 5 of us would have been killed in the next few seconds. So it not only saw ahead the accident, it painted it back to me as a picture, fast enough and convincing enough to totally convince me without argument, for me to react fast enough, to make somebody else react fast enough, so that within a space of about 3 or 4 seconds, the whole thing was done, over. And ridiculous things had happened. Time travel, gigantic communication, convincement, you name it. And what was odd is that the driver, and we spoke about this afterwards, said there was a tone to my voice that was so unearthly, he just knew he had to obey it. And without question, just spun off the road. Well, I wouldn't be here now if that hadn't happened. So your ghost really has got superpowers, and believe me, it is looking after you. But that ability to see into the future is remarkable. How superhuman are you? Well, you can time travel now. What do you want? What do you want from me? Blancmange with it. It's getting good, isn't it? You can firewalk, you can time travel, you can communicate anywhere in the world. Okay, I'm going to take it further. What is a grail? What is an object that is sacred and powerful? I'll tell you what it is. It's something that's got a piece of a ghost left on it. That's what it is. A wand. Reason I bought it. How do they work? Do they work at all? Yes, they do work. How do they work? Well, this itself, before I got messing with it, couldn't do a lot. Because I made it with the intention of it being a wand. And every moment I was working on it, that was where my intention was, that's where my focus was, that's where my thoughts was. I sweated it, I bled it, and I did bleed it, that does help too. Every part of that was imparting part of the essential ghost me onto the artifact. And then the artifact becomes exactly that, an artifact. Suddenly it's no longer just a piece of wood. It's now an extension of me. And what's weird is somebody can take that to the other side of the world and to attempt to use it. It'll be me doing the magic through that on the other side of the world, because I'm the thing that it is raised to be part of and it can borrow from. And they are an extension of your own because they are you. And a grail, especially the Holy Grail, Christ's blood, there it is. Most important part of Christ, his blood, which incidentally is a medium which the ghosts like to live in, human blood. Don't ask me why, but it's very special, the Holy Blood, the Holy Grail. It's no accident that blood is mentioned along with the ghost. It seems to flow in your bloodstream a lot. But this is how a piece, an ordinary cup that was just a cup, once it had held something that was part of a super ghost, it would never be a cup for the rest of the time. It would always be an artifact with a link to that super ghost. Hence, the beginning of a grail. And if the being is high enough, will always be a grail. Every wand is a little grail. They can be little, they can be big. This is Lifus, this is Lifus. When I'm dead, they'll still be Lifus. And here's another weird thing. Your ghost can be in so many places, can be so active, can be so separate from you, and yet you are still where it chooses to dwell, and you're very lucky about that. But I've lost myself. I was about to make a point and I completely forgot what it was. You ever do that? I need another drink. By the way, while I'm just doing this, any questions? Because I've thrown some pretty big stuff at you so far and you're all kind of accepting it a bit too well at the moment. So.
Yeah, I've kind of got one. How common do you think it might be that you act as your own guardian angel? Because I've had a couple of occasions where my life has been saved by a ghost. I've always thought, that's a guardian angel.
Okay.
I've never been able to identify them. I don't know if they were the same one. And I've never been able to identify them. I mean, I've come across spirit beings. I mean, my dad is with me a lot,
yes.
Especially in the car that he used to own. He left me in his will. He's with me all the time. I know it's him.
Well, yes, that's wonderful.
But now these spirits or these ghosts that saved my life, I can't identify them. Could it,
Well, okay.
You
Again, perfect question. Perfect question. Something I nearly missed pointing out.
Yeah.
None of us is alone. None of us.
Yeah.
And I don't just mean you've also got your ghost. That you've got anyway. But you're never only one ghost. There is always a minimum of one other ghost guiding, helping, or influencing. A lot of clairvoyants see what they call your spirit guides, and it's often an Indian or a Chinaman or somebody who spent their life in shamanic work, actually working with ghosts, one way or another, become a ghost aid afterwards. Now, often referred to as a guardian angel, doesn't actually necessarily mean it particularly was an angel. May have been some wonderful Indian or Chinese hoo-ha man or whatever. But he's very real, and he's there and he's aiding you. Everyone has a minimum one aid. Sometimes you may have a handful. And occasionally, if you're very lucky, especially if there is a particular point in your destiny that needs to be honed, you will incur what I call, and I used the word at the beginning, a superimposition, whereby a very high ghost will actually superimpose itself upon you, either for minutes, seconds, days, whatever, until a certain agenda is unfolded. And they can accidentally cause you to get into jeopardy because they got high agendas and they take you to places you wouldn't have gone to. But they're mainly in your interest. But yes, everybody has a kind of guardian angel as well as your spirit. A spirit is the leftovers of somebody who spent their life working with spirit, and so is naturally a perfect bridge to go on and help others. Whether that means they're trapped just being your aid, or whether they're an aid to 10,000 people at once, or I don't know. But there's nobody walks alone. And you can have several helpers. What is rarer is for something to latch onto you and do harm, but that does happen too. We call that possession or haunting or something like that. But it's actually no different to what you had before. It's just that something negative is going to be happening to you rather than positive. And don't think the spirit world is all good guys. There is some bad stuff out there. So you really don't want to know about, but you probably won't need to anyway, so don't worry too deeply about that. Unless you're daft like me and you put yourself into ridiculous situations, you should be all right. But there's always a fool like me who will cross the line just to learn.
How can you differentiate between you causing the problem or your higher ghost being negative towards you? I mean, that's a personal decision. You could say, oh, that was my ghost caused all that trouble. But it may have been caused by your lower being or your physical self.
It's back to communication. It's back to we act as if we have nothing else but our own thoughts and reason, experience and planned agenda. We act as if we have nothing else. And so we think as if there is nothing else. So often when we're up to mischief, that's generally down to the naive, undereducated human host with a very wobbly agenda who's not quite sure, or whatever. It's seldom the ghost causes the trouble.
No, that's what I would say. It's not the ghost. It's nearly always the person, really.
Well, like I say, not every ghost is in your interest. To say ghosts are scared of ghosts. There are bad ones out there. There are bad places to be. There are bad energies you can dwell in that are not in your interest. You know, and wouldn't it be wonderful if there was ghost healers? Somebody who came along and said, I'm not interested, I've come here to heal your ghost, and actually do it. Because why not? If the ghost has all these superpowers, why not set up ghost doctors to make sure everybody's ghost is well? And I was thinking about why do I do these lectures? It's because somewhere down the line, I want a group of like-minded people to go, let's make a group, let's do that work. Let's have a look at those uninvestigated categories. We can't fall down any holes. We can't disagree with anybody, and who knows what we'll learn. I'm one person, I wouldn't say confused, frustrated by how giant this is and how little it's touched. And yet we all accept aspects of it as part of our daily lives. Under other guises, under the guises of religion or our own talents or what have you. So,
Well, exorcisms are sort of...
exorcism is an odd one.
Yeah, they're not healing, but...
Exorcism is human beings playing God. And I know they mean well, but it's something that's never sat well with me. I have to tell you, it's never sat well with me. I have spent my life in and out of ghosts, and I call myself a ghost talker. I would never dream of trying to exorcise a ghost. If it's outside of my jurisdiction, if it's too heavy for me, or if I think it's been bad, I'll just stay away from it. These things are set into play by higher forces with a better understanding of what's going on than we'll ever have. And I think these priests, God bless them, I know they mean well, to so instantly damn everything to hell all the time isn't necessarily always the right way to go about things.
They don't go about it without being asked, though, do they?
Yes, but they're asked by human beings.
Yes, because the humans don't know any other way. They're scared.
No, exactly.
So
And the irony is to be scared of something that...
A man of God, a priest, a rabbi, call it what you will be the obvious person because they're protected by God, allegedly.
I like the allegedly on the end. It's a dicey one. Like I said, exorcism and me don't sit well together. I know there's cases when it's critically important. And I know that priests are specially trained in the means of doing it. Where I fall down on that one is the who said, and who told you, and who's judged this ghost to now be banished to hell. You know, like, I'm a little bit not too happy with how quickly these things are just implemented. Often it is not so much that ghost is all out terrible, but it's more a case of a terrible communication breakdown. And that's why I have become a ghost talker. I rather ask them what's the problem than rush out and try and find a priest and start putting up crosses everywhere.
But Joe Public doesn't know to talk to them.
No, and isn't it strange? We're kind of kept in a state of keep it in the unknown, it's outside your jurisdiction, it's the devil, don't go there. Yet you're only alive because you've got one in you. You're being told, don't look at yourself. Don't look with it. Funny thing, I'm going to say this because I must be running out of time. I told you about the Sahaj Yoga and the ghost living in the trapezium in the bottom of your coccyx. This is the same ghost that is supposed to be the most incredible all-knowing being because of its age and its experiences and its time and its agenda and its closeness to the hierarchy. So it's all kind of all-knowing. And they will say to you, if you want the answers, look within, they're in yourself, they're in your subconscious. There's not a clear enough explanation. The answers are in you, they are in you. To get them out of you, first the right question has to be asked. Secondly, you have to trust in the process of where that answer's going to come from. But if you're really, really, really lucky, you'll shut up and your ghost will get in quick and answer the question. And when that happens, a gift is given, the knowledge is given, it's a gift. But guess what? You're talking out your arse. Because that's where the knowledge is. So the next time somebody says to you, you're talking out your bottom, you say, thank you very much, I didn't realise you respected me. I just like that point. Ask your bum, she'll tell you. Oh, I love that. I'm a comedian at the end of the day. And I think spirit is too a little bit. Talking out your bum, honestly. But you are. If you really trust yourself and you listen to your inner soul, you will be talking out your bum, and I think that's rather wonderful. Right, on from bums. Oh, where are we? I've completely thrown this to pieces. How much time have I got, by the way? Surely I must be a dead man by now. 9 o'clock.
Another 5 minutes or so.
Another 5 minutes. Okay, well then, what do I consider the more important things to tell you? Done with that.
Can you tell us anything about the company of Avalon?
About the
company of Avalon, the ghosts of the monks.
I was full of mischief when I was young, as if I'm not still. And I wouldn't say I was a trespasser, I just needed to know. Okay? But I never did any harm, and I needed to put myself in the places where I thought things were distilled or deposited, or where I might get some feedback. And I did spend a lot of nights in the Abbey many years ago when security was a less sensitive question and people weren't so worried, and as long as you weren't hurting anything, what harm is there? And I was a lot younger. Company of Avalon, the ghosts in that abbey, my goodness me. My goodness me. What a repository we got there. And that's only part of it. There's an even greater one further up the road at the Chalice Well. The Chalice Well, I've been here a lot of years, I've spent a lot of time researching a lot of things. The Chalice Well, which is something I particularly looked into, many years ago they drained it to clean it. And it hadn't been drained for a long time, and people had forgotten what was in there. And when they went in, to their amazement, there was a 5-sided room offset from the entrance. And it was built in a rather peculiar manner, and so photographs were taken, and the building style was studied and researched. And they found an exact match for it, but it only has one match anywhere on the planet. And the matched Masonic style and masonry is identical to the Great Pyramid. It was built by Egyptians, the Chalice Well. Isn't that fun? It is the oldest thing round here. Second oldest. Oldest thing round here is the omphalos egg laying against the cookhouse in the abbey grounds. It used to stand exactly in the centre of the church where the cross sections go. That was the omphalos point for Avalon, where all the ley lines crossed. It goes back to megalithic man, to the days of the Stone Age and lost religions, and they left behind them the omphalos egg. When Jesus came here with Joseph of Arimathea, one of the first things he came across was this omphalos egg and a few standing stones, and he was educated by the Druids that these were these lay cross points, and he was taught about the omphalos, and he was intrigued about the power of that point. So he, just a little offset from that, he made himself a structure, the Wattle and Daub Church, first claimed around here as having been built by Joseph of Arimathea because they didn't want the world to know Jesus built it. Why didn't they want the world to know Jesus built it? Well, if it was common knowledge that Jesus had actually built a church in his lifetime, this would be more holy than Mecca, and it would be bigger than London, and it would be completely a different place to what we're in now. And it's, I think, that the high society, those in power, those in charge, didn't want that much recognition and interference going on around here. So the story was played down that Joseph of Arimathea built that Wattle and Daub Church. And it's only a few years ago, say less than 5, that finally a plaque went up stating once and for all that Jesus built that there. And he built that there because he was intrigued by the PowerPoints. And so that had been his Wattle and Daub Church and that had been the omphalos egg. Wattle and Daub Church got built around and became all the great churches. Omphalos egg, the authorities were afraid of that, and they were right to be. So they didn't destroy it, they rolled it out the way. It's still there to this day. It is the most ancient thing in Avalon. It goes back to prehistoric man, to megalithic man.
So
It's a very ancient thing.
Right to be afraid of it?
Because when you move a power stone, it can transfer into almost a curse.
So why
They
did
can
they
do
move
the
it?
opposite of leaving it alone, if you like.
Why did they move it?
Well, they moved it because they wanted to build a church right there, and it was in the way. You know, and since God's religion rules now, we'll do what we like. So they did. But that is the oldest thing round here, is the egg.
Can I just ask, have they recently done the renovations to the Abbot's Kitchen,
Yeah,
which is where it used to be?
correct.
Has it been restored into the same place? Because I couldn't find it the other day.
It's funny you mention that. Somebody else said that to me. I don't know what they're doing with it. at the
They
moment.
rolled it over once just to move it out of the way slightly. It's still there.
Oh, it's still there, good. I couldn't find it because it was all covered round.
They just finished all that building work in the kitchen, that's probably why perhaps they moved it out of the way so it didn't get damaged.
They only moved it a couple of feet with that.
I'm going to start wrapping this up. Basically, I made a mess of my notes, but who cares? I think I've slightly raised your considerations that maybe there is something else inside of you other than a few strange thoughts, and hopefully you'll dwell on that and begin to build a communication, because I think there's no reason why everybody here tonight shouldn't in a short space of time start doing superhuman things. I see no reason why not. None at all. It's up to you. It's up to you. Believe in yourself or don't. Know thyself is the oldest wisdom on the planet. Know thyself. Thank you ever so much.